understanding of a complicated world. Contribution of Charles Krauthammer is missed already.
Hear, hear, Dan. We really will miss his voice. And remember, if you have your own hit or miss, be sure to tweet it to us at JER on FNC. That's it for this week's show. Thanks to my panel. Thanks to all of you for watching. I'm Paul Gigot. Hope to see you right here next week.
Good evening, everybody. Our top stories: President Trump using all the powers of his office, trying to push for secure borders and sensible, rational immigration laws, while the rhinos and the Dems in Congress play obstructionists in their fight for amnesty and wide-open borders.
They're the worst immigration laws in the history of the world. The whole world is laughing at the United States, and they have been for years.
We'll take up this latest high-stakes battle in the political conflict over immigration and borders. Congressman Louis Gohmert joins us. Also tonight, Republican leadership on Capitol Hill, hardly leadership at all, in total meltdown. Freedom Caucus Chairman Congressman Mark Meadows unloading on Speaker Ryan from the House floor, while establishment leader Mitch McConnell stubbornly resists calls from the president to do his job as majority leader and end the preposterous 60-vote rule that has allowed the Dems to obstruct and stonewall the Trump agenda in the Senate. The dean himself, Ed Rollins, with us tonight to talk about what is a civil war brewing in the Republican Party. Our top story tonight: lame duck Speaker Paul Ryan presiding over another legislative debacle on the Hill. The conservative immigration bill went down to defeat, and in a late development this evening, the so-called leadership compromise bill that was specially crafted by Paul Ryan himself has just been pulled from the floor. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel has the latest.
We need to give the administration the tools they need to stop this problem, and it's not a new problem. The Obama administration wanted a number of the changes that are in this bill.
The yeas are 193 and the nays are 231. The bill is not passed.
A conservative immigration plan from Virginia Congressman Bob Goodlatte failed, with 41 Republicans and all Democrats voting no. It had much of what President Trump wants, but no pathway to citizenship for dreamers.
We are the immigrants! We are the immigrants!
Texas Democrat Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee said it isn't fair.
We're dependent upon them having grown up here, loving this nation, pledging the flag, pledging to the United States flag. And
the gentlewoman's time has expired.
It is a sin and a shame.
Now the pressure shifts to a House Republican leadership carefully negotiated compromise. It is based on President Trump's 4 pillars.
I hereby declare.
And would provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers.
We want to keep families intact and enforce our laws and secure our border. That is what the vast majority of Americans want to have happen.
Some in the middle of this immigration fight say the compromise bill is the only option now.
A lot of people in this chamber on both sides, more so on the other side of the aisle, have been promising a solution for dreamers for 17 years with nothing to show for it. This is our opportunity to make sure these young immigrants are treated fairly and guaranteed a future in America. A vote against this legislation is the status quo.
The House Democratic leader blasted GOP leaders for a lack of outreach.
They talk, and sometimes you all repeat it, that it's a compromise, but it is not a compromise. It may be a compromise with the devil, but it's not a compromise with the Democrats in terms of what they have in their bill.
The Senate Democratic leader is downplaying lawmakers' ability to pass anything, even a narrow measure on family separation.
Congress getting it done? It's not going to solve the problem, unfortunately, because immigration is such a contentious and divisive issue. The president has to do it himself, and let us hope he does.
Schumer tamping down expectations suggests to some Republicans Democrats would rather have a campaign issue than a solution. Senate Republican sources are also worried Democrats will keep moving the goalposts. Lou?
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Emanuel again. Even the leadership, so-called compromise bill, has gone down in flames. Another defeat, another debacle for the Ryan-led Republican conference in the House. Well, joining us tonight to talk about the Republican lawmakers' failed effort to get an immigration bill to the floor and passed, Republican Congressman from Texas, Louis Gohmert, joins us. Congressman, great to have you with us on what appears to be, I mean, this is, I would think everybody in your conference would just about have had a belly full of Paul Ryan and the nonsense he tries to sell to the president, and sometimes successfully, and sells to the conference, sometimes successfully. This is typically the result, isn't it?
Well, there is a flaw in your thinking there, Lou, and that is that you're thinking. It's just not something we do a lot of. So everything you said makes sense, except that's not the way people. I would have thought people were furious. And, Lou, I go back to the election for Speaker, right? A couple of weeks after the November election, and Trump had won. And our Speaker had said and was quoted as saying, Donald Trump was hearing voices that none of the rest of us heard. And I brought that up to him. I said, some of us were saying the same things that President Trump was saying. And he said, look, I was just trying to pay him a compliment. I said, but that's the problem. You haven't been listening to the people that got Trump elected. And I said, you didn't support his idea of having a wall. You've supported some form of amnesty, legalization all along. And just, not a totally secure border. You haven't been there. So I need to know that you're going to support all of the things that got Donald Trump elected president. And he said, look, Louis, we're talking every day. We're doing great. That doesn't answer my question. Are you going to help get the wall done, get, the no amnesty, all that? Look, we're getting along great, Louis. I'm going, that's not. But anyway, Lou, I just keep going back to that because it appears that we had leadership that was never going to deliver for the president on his promises. And God bless Trump. He's still trying to lead.
You know the president. This is a once in a century president. He's getting things done where others or more. He's getting things done that others just talk about. Yeah. He's done more in less than a year and a half than any president since FDR. And he hasn't even been in office a full year and a half.
Lou, don't forget that he's doing it with all kinds of rockets and arrows being fired at him the whole time, and he just shuffles them off and it keeps going. But I'm telling you, we had a 2-hour conference tonight, and I thought we were going to go in because the Goodlatte bill, Lou, there were a lot of good things in there. It had the E-Verify, it had the ending chain migration. It did the things we wanted. My problem was the last 30 pages or so, but given an amnesty on DACA. And as I've said all along, let's secure the border before we talk about what we do with the people. Once it's secured, we're not luring more people in here. And yet the conference seemed to be more an effort to persuade people that could not support the lack of the 4 pillars being in the bill, that they were wrong and get on board. And as a few people brought up, look, we got 193 with the Goodlatte bill that had all that stuff in there. Why don't we just tweak that so we can get it passed and get a win?
You know the answer to that. You know the answer to that. Tom Donahue at the Chamber of Commerce didn't want it. The Business Roundtable didn't want it.
You're right.
The Koch brothers didn't want it. Wall Street didn't want it.
Right.
And they are the ones managing that bill today. And
they wanted
that's why
the
it's not
second
coming to the
bill
floor tomorrow.
Yeah, and so I didn't know until I just got here to go on with you that they pulled the bill from the board, because as of when I left the conference about 20 minutes ago, we were still going to have a vote tomorrow, but others
is there anyone, I'm just curious on this, is there anyone Paul Ryan won't lie to? I mean, and I'm just talking about within the conference. Is there any reason why anyone in the Republican conference should tolerate him as Speaker for another minute?
Well, I can't say that he lied. And as I've mentioned to him this week, he had really gotten good with his words, because he said this compromise bill addresses all four pillars, takes care of all four pillars. So he didn't actually say it was going to fix all four. It said it addresses them. And then, like on chain migration, and it's really important, Lou, he didn't say this ends chain migration. His words that I heard were, this puts us on the road to fixing chain migration. I'm going, we've been on the road for 100 years. We need to get off the road and fix it. Well, and so I got to say, that's really parsing words, but it keeps you from saying, yeah, he didn't really lie. We are kind of on the road.
Now, like you, I'm from Texas. So you know what? Nothing keeps me from calling it like it is. And the fact of the matter is,
you and I both do that.
Okay.
So, it is. It's just
let's just turn to, we're over time as usual with my long questions and your short answers. It's still, still we get overtime.
But this is so serious. This is our country's existence we're talking about.
So tell me, what is the bigger...
Fix it.
Answer this for me. I'm going to throw 3 questions at you. Give me your fastest answers.
Okay, all right.
What is so urgent about getting DACA Dreamers citizenship right now?
It is a mistake to address it now. If we address that today or tomorrow, for example, there will be 2 million more people that will come through our border in the next 6 months, maybe 4 million. It will be the biggest surge in our history.
And all of this nonsense working with the Democrats. Why don't the Republicans have the... I mean, if Ryan is sincere and an honest man, why doesn't he tell his Rhino members to just get out there and campaign for the midterms like hell, and go out there and as Ryan wants, call for wide open borders and unconditional amnesty for illegal immigrants, and see how many survive a general election? Well, now, that would be the honest thing.
I don't understand why you keep trying to placate the Democrats. That's what this compromise bill does.
Absolutely.
It basically gives the Democrats everything they want, except they're not voting for it, because they want the issue. They want the issue. They don't want to fix. If they wanted to fix, they would have done it when they had all Congress.
Neither do the Republicans, because otherwise they go out and they say, let's get this done.
Exactly.
Secure the borders and
Lou.
end this nonsense about amnesty.
Well, Lou, let me put you on the spot. You know, to be Speaker of the House, there is no requirement that you be a member of Congress. Are you up for being nominated?
No.
Are you up for being nominated, Lou?
No, sir. I just have too much respect for the judgment of the House to even allow them to consider me.
Well,
I appreciate the thought.
I could vote for you.
I appreciate it, sir. By the way,
thanks, Lou.
Which raises the question: why isn't your name right out there in that hat?
Well, because when I went out there on a limb to try to take Boehner out, I exposed a lot of people's hypocrisy. Many of them haven't forgiven me, and I knew I was being a sacrificial lamb, but I felt like it was worth it if we could change speakers from Boehner, and we've still got a problem.
Right. Well, I'm very flattered by your suggestion and your thought. That implies, at least, I've been forgiven for my my harsh words about some of your
I like the way you think.
And right back at you, Congressman. Appreciate it. Louis Gohmert.
Thanks, Lou.
Congressman from Texas. Good to have you with us. Up next, lawmakers threatening more subpoenas to stop Department of Justice stonewalling over documents demanded by the Congress in its oversight role related to the out-of-control Russia witch hunt. I know. No evidence. What are they doing? We take it up with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here next. Much more straight ahead on what in the world is going on Capitol Hill. Where are we headed? We'll be right back. Subpoenas are coming within days for members of the Justice Department involved in the Russia witch hunt. Department of Justice whistleblowers and DOJ officials who've stonewalled congressional document requests are among those being called to testify before Congress. Joining us tonight, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, and you have to be feeling pretty good, Tom, to know that Congressman Meadows says there will now be subpoenas.
Well, it's a positive step forward. It's been well over a year of obstruction and stonewalling by this Justice Department. And not only that, they've been attacking congressional oversight. There's credible stories out there.
I would have a basket full if I were Speaker Ryan, if I were running one of the Intelligence Committees, Judiciary Committees, one of the Oversight Committees, I'd have a basket full of subpoenas for Rod Rosenstein himself. This is outrageous what has happened, and it's taken, and I want to just congratulate Mark Meadows when he put his face right in front of the Speaker and told him he's had it. I have to tell you, I applauded. Meadows is a man of high integrity and principle, and to have put up with this Speaker for this long without response, all I can say is congratulations to the folks in North Carolina he represents, because this is the stuff that you want to see more of in Congress.
Well, you know, and it shows you that you need leadership, not just from the leadership. If Congress is to be effective, you need folks like Mark Meadows, who aren't part of the leadership crowd necessarily, but who represent the interests of the American people, certainly in areas of oversight and the rule of law here. It's these backbenchers, more or less, in the House that have been driving this. Devin Nunes, to his credit, has taken the lead here. But I tell you, it's despite the leadership in the House that any of this is getting done. And it's only the unremitting pressure of Meadows, Jordan, DeSantis, people like Nunes, that Ryan is allowing any of this to go forward.
Right. And Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
you know,
Gaetz, yeah.
Amongst these folks, there is the general view, if unexpressed publicly, that something has to be done here, and they cannot come together because they have a sellout to all of the business interests, to the establishment, to the globalist elite on the part of their Speaker, and they're going into the midterms with this guy, it appears right now. If they don't have the guts to get rid of him, they're consigning themselves to the abyss electorally.
Well, there's this big crowd in Washington, D.C., the political elites of both parties who want mass amnesty, and they'll take it any way they'll get it. They'll create
well, the hell with it, and the hell with it.
And you know, and I have a simple take on all of this. The best immigration reform is to enforce the law on the books.
Yeah.
It's going to stop the flows of the families coming north. You can pressure Mexico to stop it from happening. You take care of those who are already here within the law, but not much needs to be done.
You can't do anything. Let me say this too, Tommy. Let me interrupt you on this, because I understand what you're saying. Enforce the law. But here is the basic fundamental logic that's absolutely requisite and undeniable. You cannot reform, change, or alter, or enforce immigration law if you do not control the border. It's that straightforward. And ipso facto, control the damn border, right?
That's exactly right. If I were the president, I would deploy the military to the border to secure the border immediately, given the national security and humanitarian and criminal threat we face from the border. Yeah. You'd not only be protecting the American people, but you'd be protecting the illegal aliens who are being trafficked through this border region that is completely wide open in many areas.
And it's time to let the Mexican government know that they're bringing thousands of unaccompanied minors from their southern border, then giving them effectively escort 2,000 miles to the northern border with this country and dumping those young people on our doorstep and creating havoc. And by the way, that doesn't include $60 billion worth of illegal drugs, methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, marijuana that are coming across that border, coming from Mexico every year. And to think there's a discussion going on Capitol Hill, and these fools are trying to represent the Chamber of Commerce interest. It is sickening to watch these gutless frauds even discuss the issues that are of such paramount importance to this entire country.
And it's going to get worse. The view from the South is that there's chaos in the United States. Congress is pushing to undermine the rule of law. The media is pushing to undermine the rule of law. And that translates as, we got to get across the border and take advantage, because they will never hold us in these circumstances. Any discussion of amnesty increases illegal immigration, and the president needs to stand fast and enforce the rule of law. It's why he was put in office, and it's fundamental to protecting the United States and its sovereignty.
You know, and the other thing is this president has already created a legacy. He's already a historic president. He is the only person with anything to lose in not abiding by his promises to the American people and to his base, to his voters, because no one expects any of those other folks on Capitol Hill to keep a single promise that they've ever made. I doubt they even remember what they promised their voters, with a few exceptions, and we just mentioned a half a dozen of them. There are a few more, but not many.
Well, there's an opportunity to get a quick, small bill in that allows the families to be detained together, upholding the rule of law, while taking care of children who are needlessly put in harm's way by both their parents and the amnesty crowd. This can be done quickly if the Republican leadership takes a hold of it and moves it forward.
I would say the odds of that happening are so remote.
But we need to demand action. We just can't let this continue.
Yeah,
it's a nightmare.
Well, the nightmare can end as soon as we control our border.
That's right.
That's this, you know, all of this stuff, piecemeal and comprehensive, you call it what you want. The fact is that until we have the guts to defend our own border, the courage and the principle and the commitment to the values of this nation and to the integrity of this constitutional republic and our own society, we are lost. And it's that straightforward. Tom Fitton, great to have you with us. We'll take up the deep state later. We got troubles boiling on the front burner right now.
I hear you.
Thanks so much. Tom Fitton.
You're welcome.
Up next, President Trump says it's time to blow up the 60-vote filibuster rule. So far, Rhino Mitch McConnell hasn't done anything to encourage either him or to end dim obstructionism. Ed Rollins is here next. Stay with us. We're coming right back. It was delayed until tomorrow and now has been pulled altogether. The earlier so-called conservative good lot immigration bill failed to pass, but by only 25 votes in the margin, 193 votes for it. Neither piece of legislation would have had much chance of passing the Senate because of the 60-vote rule that Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refuses to eliminate. Without rational explanation and certainly without judgment, President Trump has absolutely begged McConnell to do the right thing to move the entire agenda forward, and McConnell refuses. President Trump tweeted about it just this morning. The president asked, "What is the purpose of the House doing good immigration bills when you need 9 votes by Democrats in the Senate and the Dems are only looking to obstruct," parenthetically, which they feel is good for them in the midterms. Republicans must get rid of this stupid filibuster rule. It is killing you. Well, joining us now to assess this and much more, former Reagan White House political director, Great America PAC chairman, Fox Business political analyst Ed Rollins. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Is the president right about the 60-vote rule?
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is, even if we hold the Senate, it'll be by a few seats next time, and we'll be the same kind of drill. It ought to be a majority rule. That's what it ought to be. That's what, and the Senate today stops everything that's passed in the House, and it's just time to quit. If you really wanted to get some things done.
Do you know what motivates McConnell? Do you understand why he refuses to do this?
He's been a leader for a long time, and he thinks that's part of the institutional knowledge, and that you have to share the minority's views. I don't. I believe in majority vote. I believe in whoever wins the majority. Democrats, Republicans, you get to move an agenda. And if you fail to move an agenda, you're going to get voted out of office. And we're getting on that verge of failing.
Well, you can bet one
agenda.
thing, I think that's fair to say, see if you agree, that if the Democrats win the Senate by a sizable margin, they're going to get rid of that damn rule. It's just going to be that straightforward.
I promise you, if they're sitting there with 51 or 52 or 53 votes, they're definitely going to change that rule and not bat an eyelash about it.
Well, somebody needs to change a rule about speakers and the Republican conference in the House. You tell me why the Republicans are putting up with a speaker that doesn't seem to understand how to count votes, doesn't have any concern about what he says to the President of the United States about his ability to deliver votes, and puts together hogwash and nonsense and puts a bow around it and calls it an immigration bill when it's nothing more than the work product of the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, the Koch brothers, and Wall Street.
Well, this is the worst group of vote counters I've ever seen. They barely got the tax bill through. They didn't have the correct votes on that.
They couldn't have gotten that through in a million years without the leadership of President Trump.
And they certainly didn't do the health care, the same kind of drill. And this, you had the option of two bills. The second bill, they can't even get the votes up tomorrow. So it's dead. It's dead. It's absolutely dead. And you know, the reality at this point in time is let's move on and go do other things that are meaningful at this point in time. The DACA vote is not going to happen this session. You're not going to throw anybody out of the country. The courts have sort of held that. But here's
why not just simply be straight up, straightforward? The president promised a wall, and just put your hands, figuratively speaking, around Paul Ryan's neck and say, let's start delivering on my promises.
Well, if you don't get a wall up there, you're not going to stop this problem. I mean, the reality here is that you've got thousands and thousands of people sprinting for the borders of this.
The politics of it are what I'm talking about. Why in the world not honestly go to the voters in the polls in this midterm election and say, we are Republicans, we support this president, we want the wall, we want to control our borders because we can't control immigration if we don't control the border.
To me,
it's that straightforward.
To me, it's a winning issue, and the president proved it was a winning issue the last time. So I think the members would be foolish not to do that. That'd be HR 1 should be the wall.
Ed Rollins.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. We want to express our condolences tonight to the family and to the friends of longtime Fox News contributor, Pulitzer Prize winner Charles Krauthammer. Krauthammer will always be remembered for his insight, his knowledge, his wit. He was a best-selling author and extraordinarily popular conservative columnist. Charles Krauthammer, 68 years of age. Reached a 12-year high. The latest Gallup poll finding 38% of those surveyed are happy with the way things are going in America right now. That is a high not seen since September 2005. Now, think about that. That's 3 years before Barack Obama was elected. 68% of Republicans polled gave a big thumbs up to Trump's leadership. Well, joining us tonight, retired four-star general, Fox Business Chief Strategic Analyst, General Jack Keane. General, great to have you with us. Let's start with, first of all, that sense of optimism that is starting to move higher. 30% doesn't sound very high, but when it's the best in 12 years, a real turnaround has taken place.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. In this country, the economy is moving forward. We've got good national security policies. I think they're not perfect, but it's a work in progress. We've changed American leadership in this world today. Some of our allies are pushing back on us because they've been taking advantage of us for years, but I think we're going to sort through all of this in time.
You know, it's interesting, the G7 meeting, which turned out to be a G6 at the end, because they didn't understand that this president is exactly right about balancing international trade relationships, and certainly right from the U.S. perspective, given that we haven't had a trade surplus in 43 years in this country. It is interesting to see that friction build up. He talks about a terrific relationship with all of the leaders. But the truth is, they need to hear what this president has got to say. And sometimes, you know, you don't need syrup, you just need the medicine. And that's not a bad idea, particularly when it comes to a nation with a $20 trillion national debt.
Yeah, I've had major problems with these social democracies for years. I mean, most of them have feckless leaders, despite some of their popularities. They've never been able to deal with a terrorism issue. They have open borders, mass immigration with no vetting, multiculturalism neighborhoods where people are prisoners in those neighborhoods. They can't access mainstream education, mainstream jobs. And after every terrorist act, those leaders come up there, wring their hands, and say, "We're gonna bring them to justice." But they don't make the policy changes that would assist in dealing with the problem. And now, and what the United States has always done with these feckless European leaders is cuddled them. and we have a president that refuses to cuddle them. He just wants to be treated fairly. And he's also willing to defend them with U.S. major military power against Russian aggression.
Well, that military power has been bolstered in certainly the Asian region, the Pacific region, in large measure because of North Korea and China. The China state media making some really nasty remarks about, well, foolish leadership, building walls instead of bridges, as if they had never built something called the Great Wall. I mean, they're really starting to lose a little standing in the game, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. The economic warfare and aggression that China is creating, not only in the Indo-Pacific, but in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East, they use bullying tactics. They pull the elite in. They bring all of their own laborers in. And then they deliver, Lou, they deliver second-rate projects and when they complete them in terms of infrastructure, energy. This bullying that they're going to do, they're going to wear a lot of these folks out. And more people are going to come to our side, I predict, because the United States is taking the lead to stand up to China.
You know, we're out of time, but I've got to ask you this very quickly. A lot of attention being paid to the president calling for a space force, which I think is a terrific idea, by the way. But I love the fact that the United States apparently is going to get very aggressive and be on the offense in cyber warfare. Your thoughts about the importance and the timing of it?
There's no doubt that we got to get organized in space better than we are. We should dominate space. After all, we were the first ones there. Yeah. But there's a lot there. I can tell you for a fact that over the next few years, by 2030, the Chinese will have 3 times as many satellites up there that are serving their national military needs based against the United States. Yeah. I don't know if the Space Force is the right way to do it. He's starting the process. I think the end result is what we want. We want to dominate space.
General Jack Keane, as always, great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good talking to you, Lou.
Up next, the IG report reveals Hillary Clinton was not a subject of a formal investigation in the FBI's attempts to understand the matter, as Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, then insisted it be referred to as. My next guest says the fix was in from the beginning to clear her from the scandal. Former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy joins me here in just 1 minute. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Lou Dobbs tonight. Powerful insight on money and politics.
I mean, this is really getting to be dangerous stuff. Well, these are interesting times in Washington.
There's a reason why it's the #1 show on business television.
Much more to go, much more to do. McCarthy, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, National Review contributing editor, Fox Business contributor. Great to have you with us, Andy. I don't know what to say about Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, and his report. Clear statements of findings of bias on the and the upper reaches of the, if they can be called that, at least in the leadership of the FBI. And he found that none of this, he testified that none of this suggested to him that the decision not to investigate Hillary Clinton was motivated by an anti-Trump bias that seemed to be universal in the FBI.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I knew Horowitz as a prosecutor in New York, right. And I think if you were making an argument to a jury rather than doing a report like this, what you would say is, ladies and gentlemen, you get to bring your common sense into the courtroom, so that if you find that you have people who are pervasively biased and then they take actions which are completely consistent with their pervasive bias, when you get to the end of the rainbow, you can say they acted on their biases.
It also strikes me that it seemed unworthy of notice or certainly a preeminent place. The fact that in 50,000 emails between Strzok and Lisa Page, there was not, first of all, as to their being lovers, I didn't see a single reference to I love you, I like you, of anything suggesting lust. I mean, it was one of the most sterile, at least according to those texts, relationship I've ever seen.
Well, there's an FBI form for that. So.
There must be, and I thought there was an FBI penalty for fraternization as well, but apparently the Office of Professional Management doesn't care much about that.
Well,
secondly, you know what else is missing from all of those emails? In addition to all of the private emails, let's leave that aside for a moment, there's not a single reference to, by anyone, you know, I really hate Hillary Clinton. I despise her. She is an idiot. She is a terrible witch. She is a horrible person. Not one single email has been produced that suggests anyone in the FBI was, let's say, leaning somewhat Republican.
Yeah. Well, you know, look, I don't begrudge them.
I do.
Well, you know, look, people have, I guess I was a lawyer, I was a prosecutor in New York for a long time. My best friends in the office were liberal Democrats. I never found that it got brought into the courtroom. Now, we didn't have a case like this, granted. But what bothers me is, and to me, this is the whole case, Mueller gets appointed on, was it May 17th of 2017? Right. The next day, Strzok is talking about joining Mueller's team.
Right.
And he regards it as unfinished business.
Yep.
So now, we're not any longer talking about having political attitudes. What he's basically saying is, you know, all that stuff I said in 2016 about we will stop him and we need an insurance policy? Well, that didn't all work out. He got elected, didn't he? But now I have a chance to address my unfinished business. What other possible interpretation of it is there?
I still want to know, who are the we? We're going to stop him. Who were carrying out a mission to stop him.
Yeah.
And why is there such a reticence on the part of the Republican leadership of the House and the Senate to acknowledge what is before them? It's one thing for Trey Gowdy to go bouncing back and forth. He can't decide whether he's for Trump or whether he is for the institution of the FBI or whatever the establishment is that he seems to seek to serve on, intermittently. Why in the world aren't Ryan and McConnell saying, enough of this? Damn it, get it over with and wrap it now.
Well, they do need to wrap it. And the artificial thing about this is it's all the Clinton emails investigation, and there's nothing about the Russia investigation. And that's the piece, that's the context that you really need to understand everything.
Yep, absolutely. A great point, as always. Andrew McCarthy, thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Coming up here next, a shocking new report revealing thousands of criminal illegal immigrants living in the United States because of President Obama's DACA disaster. What is going on? We take it up with Angel Mom, Marianne Mendoza, here next. We'll be right back with her. Marianne Mendoza, her son Sergeant Brandon Mendoza, was killed in 2014 in a head-on collision. An illegal immigrant who was drunk driving at the time, killing her son. Marianne, it is always good to see you, and we thank you for being here. We thought it was only appropriate that, given all of the talk about families being separated, that we turn to you and the angel moms who've lost a loved one as a result of illegal immigration, the acts of illegal immigrants, to get your reaction to the rhetoric and to the narrative that's being spun up in an obviously highly coordinated, orchestrated way by the national left-wing media and some, very likely, on Capitol Hill and more likely in the House of Representatives.
Yes, and you know, I blame all of our politicians, any elected official on a federal, state, or city level, for working tirelessly and so hard for illegal aliens in our country and not putting forth that effort to protect their fellow American citizens. It's been an ongoing battle. It's something that they don't want to solve. This current issue right now, unfortunately, and it makes me sad that so many Americans just read a headline or look at a picture and immediately go with the rhetoric of how terrible these children are being treated, when in fact a lot of them are arriving at the border having been kidnapped and, you know, with sex traffickers. And we are actually doing a favor to these children. And I wish Americans would just take the time to understand these children needed the help that they got at the border, and thank God that the United States was there to help them.
Absolutely. By the way, we are also, you know, part of the story that's not being told these children have not been cared for. They have to be taught how to use a toilet. They have to be taught basic hygiene. The care